My name is Jenna Rose Whitaker, and what I'm about to share with you completely changed my life. It happened on April 14th, 2018, a day I thought would be like any other. My best friend at the time, Lily, and I had planned a Saturday morning hike out on the Cedar Valley Ridge Trail, not too far from where I live in northern Utah. The weather was perfect, cool breeze, blue skies, not a cloud in sight. I had packed some water, a snack, and my inhaler because I've always had mild asthma, but I never expected anything to happen that day. If anything, I was looking forward to laughing, maybe taking some pictures, and just forgetting about school and stress for a while. The hike started out easy. We were maybe about an hour in when I started to feel something wasn't right. It wasn't like my usual asthma, this was deeper, heavier. Like my lungs were being crushed from the inside out. At first I thought I was just tired or maybe dehydrated, but then the pressure got worse. I told Lily I needed to sit down for a second, and before I could even get my footing, everything around me started spinning. The last thing I remember seeing was her face changing from confusion to panic, and then everything just went black. From what I've been told, I dropped straight to the ground right there on the trail. Lily screamed and immediately called 911, then started CPR, something she'd learned from her older brother who worked as an EMT. What neither of us knew was that my heart had stopped completely. By the time the paramedics arrived, I had been without a heartbeat for over 3 minutes. They worked on me frantically right there in the dirt, not knowing if they were too late. They said it was a miracle they got me back at all. But while all that was happening on the outside, something else was happening to me, something far more real than anything I'd ever experienced. I suddenly became aware that I was no longer in my body. I wasn't scared, and I wasn't in pain. It felt like I had slipped out of a tight jacket I didn't even know I'd been wearing. I could see everything from above, Lily sobbing and pushing on my chest, the blur of emergency lights in the distance, and my own lifeless body lying there. I tried to call out to her, to let her know I was okay, but no sound came out. Then I felt a strange pull, not forceful, but kind and steady, drawing me upward into a warm, glowing light. As I moved higher, everything around me changed. The light wasn't harsh or blinding, it was soft, almost like sunlight passing through warm-colored glass. There were no shadows, no sharp edges, just this peaceful brightness that wrapped around me like a blanket. I didn't feel like I was floating anymore. It felt like I was being carried by something gentle and loving. I wasn't afraid. In fact, for the first time in my entire life, I felt completely safe. Not just physically safe, but emotionally, spiritually, all of it. Like whatever had been weighing on me, even things I didn't realize were heavy, had been lifted away. I passed through what felt like a tunnel, but it wasn't narrow or dark. It was wide and endless, and the farther I went, the more peace I felt. There was no sense of time there, no minutes ticking by, no stress, no pressure. Just stillness. Beautiful, comforting stillness. Then, up ahead, I saw a kind of opening. And beyond it was a light even brighter and warmer than the one surrounding me. It wasn't just light, it felt alive. And at the center of it, I saw someone standing. The moment I saw him, I knew exactly who he was. Not because of what he looked like, but because of what I felt. It was Jesus. I know how that sounds. I didn't grow up super religious. My family went to church once in a while, mostly on holidays. I believed in God, sure, but I had never really thought too hard about heaven or anything after this life. But when I saw him, I didn't question it. I didn't need to. My soul recognized him instantly. He didn't look exactly like the paintings you see. He was more radiant than that, more powerful, more real. His eyes, it's hard to explain. They didn't just look at you, they looked into you. And somehow, you didn't want to run from it, even though he could see everything, every failure, every lie, every mistake. When he said my name, I broke. Not because I was afraid, but because the way he said it made me feel like I was the most loved person in the entire universe. He just said, "Jenna, that's it." But when he spoke, it didn't sound like sound. It was like the words went straight into my heart. I started crying, not from sadness, but from some deep, deep release. Like I'd been holding my breath my whole life and didn't even know it. And now I could finally breathe. Jesus stepped closer to me, and the moment he did, I felt something like waves of warmth pass through my whole being. It wasn't like heat from the sun or a fireplace, it was deeper than that. It was love. A love that was so complete, so pure, it made every love I'd ever known on earth feel like a shadow by comparison. Just standing in front of him made me feel like everything broken in me was being healed at once. It was like he was pouring himself into all the places I didn't even know were empty. He reached out his hand, and when I touched it, it was like my whole life flashed before me in an instant. But it wasn't like watching a movie of the big moments. I saw the tiny ones, the things I'd completely forgotten. Helping a girl pick up her books in middle school, smiling at a stranger in a waiting room, but also the things I wished I could take back. Times I was rude to my parents, moments I judged someone behind their back, lies I told. And the incredible thing was, he didn't shame me for any of it. He didn't scold me. He didn't shake his head. He just kept loving me through all of it. His love wasn't changing based on my choices. It was steady. It was constant. It just was. After that, Jesus looked into my eyes and said, "There's something you need to see, Jenna. Something I'm going to show you. Not to scare you, but so you'll remember and share it with others." Then the space around us shifted. One moment we were in the middle of light, and the next, we were standing on what felt like clouds, but solid under our feet. Below us, almost like a giant moving map, was Earth. I could see it clearly: continents, oceans, cities. Jesus raised his hand and motioned toward it. Before the year 2030, he said, there are 3 events that will come, and they will shape the world in ways people are not ready for. The first vision appeared instantly. I saw huge waves crashing into cities I recognized. There was flooding in places like New Orleans, Bangkok, and London. Coastal towns were disappearing beneath the water. And it wasn't gradual, it was fast. People were screaming. Buildings were breaking apart. It was terrifying. I could actually feel the fear of the people down there, like it was echoing in my chest. I turned to Jesus, and with tears in my eyes, I asked, "Why is this happening?" He gently answered, "This is not my doing. This is the result of the world ignoring my creation. The balance was broken long ago, and now it is accelerating." Even in the middle of that destruction, he told me to look closer. And when I did, I began to see something I hadn't noticed at first. People were helping each other. Neighbors were carrying the elderly through the rising water. Churches were opening their doors to everyone, not just their members. Entire communities were coming together to share food, blankets, and shelter. Countries that once considered each other enemies were sending aid across oceans. Jesus looked at me and said, "In great suffering, hearts that were once divided will unite. Compassion will rise where comfort once made people selfish. This trial will awaken a deeper love, and many will find me in the middle of it." Then the scene faded, and a second vision unfolded in front of us. This time, it wasn't water or storms, it was darkness. I saw cities, full of light one moment, go completely black the next. One after another. No electricity. No phones, no internet. Everything that people relied on to stay connected and in control was gone. There was chaos at first. Fear. People not knowing what to do, where to go, or how to find help. But again, just like the first vision, there was another layer underneath the panic. People began to step outside. Neighbors who had never spoken before were now sitting together on porches, lighting candles, cooking meals over fires, playing music. Families gathered around board games and prayer circles instead of screens. Kids who never looked up from their phones were running through the streets, laughing. Jesus said to me, "The systems man has built have become their gods. But I will allow them to fall, not to destroy, but to humble. What they've built in pride will be silenced, and in that silence, my voice will be heard." And as he said that, I could feel it, how even in the loss, something beautiful was being restored. Then came the third vision. And I'll be honest, this one was the hardest to see. I saw people wearing masks again, but not for COVID. This was something new. There was a different sickness spreading. People were afraid to go near each other. But the deeper sickness wasn't what was in the body, it was in the heart. I could feel this fear like a heavy fog hanging over entire countries. People stopped trusting one another. They started accusing, dividing, isolating, not because they had to, but because fear was being used like a weapon. Jesus told me, a new illness will come. But the greater danger will not be the virus. It will be fear. And some will use that fear to control and separate my children. But even in the middle of that fear, I saw something else breaking through. It started small. A woman praying beside a hospital bed. A group of kids holding hands and praying in a school gym. Families gathering in living rooms with their heads bowed. It wasn't happening in church buildings. These were in homes, on streets, in parks. It was like a wave of prayer sweeping across the world, quietly but powerfully. Jesus turned to me and said, "This is how my light will shine in the darkest moments. Not through loud voices or grand stages, but through hearts turned toward me in silence, in trust, in love." Every thread is a prayer spoken in faith. I watched as he reached out and touched a single thread, and when he did, a ripple of light moved through the entire wall. Other threads lit up, more and more. And then he showed me something that made me cry all over again. He said, "This thread was yours, Jenna. Last year, when you prayed for your cousin who was going through depression." I gasped, because I remembered that night. I was lying in bed, crying quietly, asking God to help her. And he said, "Nothing happened right away, but your prayer set things into motion you could never have seen." It gave her enough strength to make it through her darkest day. It touched her mom's heart to check on her at the right moment. It gave her counselor the words she needed to speak. That single prayer echoed into eternity. I stood there, speechless. It changed how I understood prayer forever. It wasn't just words. It was power. It was connection. It was action in the unseen world. Jesus looked at me with eyes that held both love and urgency. In the times that are coming, he said, prayer will not just be helpful, it will be essential. Teach people to pray again, Jenna. Not with fancy words, but with open hearts. Teach them that they are not helpless, that their prayers matter. I nodded, and even though I felt overwhelmed by everything I had seen, I knew what he was asking. It wasn't just for me to remember, it was for me to speak, to tell others, to prepare hearts, not with fear, but with hope. He took my hands in his and smiled. "You're not going back alone," he whispered. "Even when you can't see me like this, I am with you. I will never leave you." I didn't want to leave. I remember looking around at the light, at him, at the peace I had never known before, and I whispered, "Can I stay?" The words came out shaky, like a child not wanting to go home after being held for the first time in a long time. Jesus' face softened even more, and he pulled me into a hug. And that hug, it wasn't like a human hug. It felt like being wrapped in every kind of good memory, every ounce of comfort I'd ever felt in my life, all at once. It filled me. It healed me. I didn't want to ever let go. But he said to me so gently, "My child, this is your true home. One day, you will return. But not today. You still have a purpose." Then, all at once, I felt a shift, like the atmosphere itself had changed. That pull I had felt earlier, the one that had brought me toward the light, was now pulling me backward. There was no pain at first, just speed. I was moving so fast I couldn't see anything. Then, suddenly, I was hit with the most crushing pressure in my chest. I opened my eyes to chaos. The sound of sirens. A paramedic's face hovering above me. Oxygen being pushed onto my face. Someone shouting, "We've got a pulse." Everything hurt. My body was shaking, but I was back. I spent the next 3 days in the hospital. They told me I had suffered sudden cardiac arrest from a condition I didn't even know I had. Doctors couldn't explain why there was no brain damage after being gone so long. They kept calling me a miracle, but they didn't know the half of it. I had seen the other side, and the thing that surprised me most wasn't just the love I felt, it was that I hadn't wanted to come back. That I would have gladly stayed there if Jesus hadn't asked me to return. That realization haunted me at first. Not in a bad way, but in a way that made me question everything I thought I knew about this life. When I finally got home, nothing looked the same. The sky looked bluer. The trees looked alive in a way they hadn't before. The people I used to ignore at the store, I started seeing them. Really seeing them. Their tired eyes. Their slumped shoulders. Their hidden pain. And I started noticing opportunities. Moments to show kindness. Moments to pray. Moments to speak life into someone who might have forgotten what hope feels like. It was like Jesus had left a spark in me, and it wouldn't go out. I started sharing my story with a few close people, just those I really trusted at first. I was scared. I didn't want people to think I was crazy or making things up. But what surprised me was how many people leaned in instead of walking away. My mom cried the first time I told her everything. She said she always believed in God, but never really felt him until she heard what I'd seen. My cousin, the one I had prayed for in that golden thread, held my hand and told me she had almost ended her life the week I prayed. That my story helped her feel seen, not just by me, but by God. Then came the dreams. At first, they were just flashes, soft images, pieces of the visions I'd seen when I was gone. But they grew stronger, clearer. It was like Jesus kept showing me little reminders of what I had been sent back to share. In one dream, I saw a girl curled up in her room, crying into her pillow. I didn't recognize her, but I felt like I knew her heart. The next day, I walked into school and passed a girl who looked just like the one in my dream. I stopped. I sat down next to her, and I told her, "I don't know what you're going through, but you're not alone. I know what it feels like to want to give up, but I promise you, you are so deeply loved." She burst into tears. And from that day on, we were friends. That moment lit something inside me. I started a little group in my living room. Just me, Lily, a couple of girls from school, and my neighbor Miss Carla, who had lost her husband the year before. We didn't do anything big. We prayed. We shared stories. We talked about what mattered. We cried and laughed and worshipped. It grew slowly, and eventually, others started asking to come. Not because they wanted answers, but because they wanted connection. because they were tired of pretending everything was okay. And I realized that what Jesus said was true. What the world is missing isn't knowledge. It's heart. It's love. It's truth spoken softly, not shouted. And most of all, it's prayer. I know we're living in a time when everything feels unstable. People are scared. Some are angry. Some are numb. But what I saw, what Jesus showed me, made it clear. The events that are coming, the floods, the blackouts, the sickness, they aren't the end. They're the wake-up call. They're not about punishment. They're about mercy, about shaking us out of our sleep and showing us what really matters. Not the stuff, not the systems, not the noise, but each other, our souls, our hearts, and our connection to Him. When everything else falls away, it's love that will save us. I've learned that when the storms come, and they will come, it won't be the strongest or the richest who endure. It'll be the ones who are anchored in something deeper. The ones who know how to love when it's hard, how to stay soft when the world tells them to harden up, and how to fall to their knees when their strength runs out. That's what Jesus wanted me to bring back. Not a message of fear, but of readiness. Not a call to panic, but a call to wake up. To stop waiting for life to slow down or make sense. To stop ignoring the ache in our hearts for something real. Because heaven is real. Eternity is real. And the time to open our hearts isn't tomorrow. It's now. So, if you're watching this and wondering if your life matters, it does. More than you know. Every word you speak, every choice you make, every time you forgive someone instead of holding on to hate, it ripples through eternity. I've seen it. I've felt it. There are no small prayers, no wasted kindnesses, no unnoticed tears. Everything is seen. Everything is woven into something far more beautiful than we can imagine on the side. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have all the answers. But you do have to say yes. Yes to truth. Yes to hope. Yes to love. There is a shift coming. I don't know exactly when or how, but I know we're in the beginning of it. Some people will keep chasing distractions. Others will harden their hearts. But there's a remnant, a quiet group of people who will choose something different. Who will become light bearers in the dark. Who will open their homes and their hands and their hearts. Who will pray with everything they've got. And when the waters rise, when the power fails, when fear tries to shut us in, those people, the ones anchored in faith and love, will stand. They won't just survive. They'll shine. And they'll lead others home. So, if this story stirred something in you, please don't let it go. Talk to someone about it. Pray even if you haven't in years. Find others who are searching like you are. And if this message brought you even a little bit of peace, please consider sharing it. There's someone else out there tonight who needs to hear that their life matters. That heaven is real. That God sees them. That there's still time. Time to prepare. Time to come home. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to this channel. We're going to keep sharing real stories like mine, real moments of encounter with Jesus that are meant to wake hearts up and bring hope in these uncertain times. Thank you for listening to my story. My name is Jenna Rose Whitaker, and I'm not afraid of what's coming, because I know who's walking with me. If this testimony touched you in any way, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone you love. You never know who might need this exact message right now. And in the comments below, tell us, have you ever had a spiritual experience you can't explain? Let's lift each other up. Let's build a community of hope. Because this world needs it now more than ever.